Hello, this is The Session, where we take a look back at the highlights of the last Parliamentary Assembly session here at the Council of Europe. And we start with the King of Spain, who has told PACE that Europe should continue to be a reference point for freedoms and integration. In an address strong on social values, the King went on to say that the continent should be viewed as a project for living together.
Spain
looks definitely towards a Europe that is juster towards inequalities, a more cohesive, more integrated Europe, both within the structures of the European Union as well as those of the Council of Europe. And before all, we look forward to Europe as a project for living together around the recognition of the inalienable dignity of all human beings, because Europe is more than just a geographical space defined by history. It is also a project, an idea, some might say a dream. Anyway, it is an enterprise for which it is worthwhile fighting.
Parliamentarians voted by a large majority to reopen the monitoring procedure for Turkey until serious concerns about respect for human rights, democracy and the rule of law have been addressed in a satisfactory manner. Now, the resolution adopted by the Parliamentary Assembly by 113 votes to 45 with 12 abstentions calls on the Turkish authorities to lift the state of emergency as soon as possible, stop the spreading of emergency decree laws which bypass parliamentary procedures unless strictly needed, and release all parliamentarians and journalists detained pending trial. The resolution also calls on the Turkish authorities to establish an inquiry commission on state of emergency measures, ensure fair trials with respect for due procedural guarantees, and take urgent measures to restore freedom of expression and the media. Here's a flavour of that debate.
We were surprised and quite disappointed to hear that Turkey, which has ratified the European Convention on Human Rights and its Protocols 6 and 13, is now contemplating the introduction of the death penalty. The death penalty has no place in Council of Europe's membership. Dear colleagues, Turkey is facing challenging, extraordinary times. The newly adopted constitutional amendments do not comply with our fundamental and common understanding of democracy. And this situation brings new challenges. We are convinced that we should, more than ever, cooperate with Turkey.
We also want to use leverage with Turkey against the adoption of the death penalty. That would be a Rubicon for me if Turkey were to adopt the death penalty. So my suggestion is, what can this Assembly do that is short of monitoring? And so the one thing that I would ask you to do today is look very carefully at what we can do to support Turkey, but not to put it into monitoring.
We see Turkey as a very important partner of the Council of Europe. We see Turkey as a very important partner in stabilizing the region. We call upon them to stay democratic. We call upon them to stay fair. We call upon them to stay part of this family, because this is the family where the human rights are the strongest.
Turkey is working with the Council of Europe, and when we have a constructive dialogue, we can achieve success. We have done it in January session. 3 important decrees were accepted by Turkey simply because we were really working closely on a constructive manner and on mutual respect. We would like to continue such a spirit of discussion, debating and working with the Council of Europe and the PACE.
The cooperation between Turkey and the Assembly has intensified after the failed coup attempt. And this is reflected in the resolution properly. And we are very grateful to the Secretary General of the Council of Europe that the Secretary General leads this process, the dialogue with Turkey, and we are also very glad that this process is supported by the European Union. And I simply, dear colleagues, just don't understand why do we risk the existing process, which is supported by the Secretary General, by the European Union by stigmatizing symbolically Turkey with reopening the monitoring procedure when we have an existing post-monitoring procedure.
Ich war mit Kollegen Hunko in Diyarbakir.
I was in Diyarbakir with colleague Hunko, and our conclusion was that this was neither a fair nor a free referendum, and the 49% now for the opposition are a tremendous success given the repression that occurred. And in reality, when you count everything, the internally displaced persons, etc., we think that really the opposition amounted to about 60%. We have no other alternative than to conduct monitoring, to reopen it as we conduct it for all other countries as monitoring.
The president of the Hellenic Republic addressed PACE with a speech largely based on themes of social justice and representative democracy. Prokopios Pavlopoulos warned against the rise of populism in Europe, arguing that to give in to such ideology might lead to alienation. After his address, Mr. Pavlopoulos sat for questions from parliamentarians. In response to one question from Austria's Stefan Schenack on the subject of refugees, Mr. Pavlopoulos said that Greece needed practical help in coping with the crisis, not money.
Το πρώτο το οποίο θα ήθελε η Ελλάδα είναι να υπάρχει.
The first thing that Greece would like is for there to exist solidarity between the peoples of Europe with regard to the distribution of refugees. And what Greece really wants, and Greece has made major sacrifices up until now, of course, Greece can't really bear accusations made against it that we don't protect our sea borders or our land borders. What are our partners in Europe teaching us when they say that? So we don't want financial support. What we want is practical support.
Πρακτική συμπαράσταση.
The Bureau of the Parliamentary Assembly says it has no confidence in Pedro Agramunt as its president. The Bureau also voted to strip Mr. Agramunt of his powers to undertake official visits, attend meetings, or make public statements on behalf of the Assembly in his capacity as president. Mr. Agramunt attended a special hearing in the hemicycle where he was questioned by political leaders about a visit to Syria in March 2017, in which he met the country's leader, Bashar al-Assad. He faced questions alongside Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe chairperson Jordi Shukla and Elan Destek from the same political group. Pedro Agramunt has apologized for the visit to Syria, calling it a mistake. The Council of Europe's Human Rights Commissioner addressed PACE, calling on member states to do more to tackle human rights abuses across the continent. Publishing his 2016 annual report, Nils Muiznieks urged parliamentarians to better assist refugees to integrate, to protect human rights defenders and journalists, and to be more critical when considering the prolongation of states of emergency.
I call on you to relay to your colleagues back home the seriousness of the challenges to the human rights system in Europe overall, the seriousness of the backsliding in various countries, and to try to convey to your colleagues that it is not business as usual for human rights in Europe. I also urge you in my annual report to take an active role at national level in the implementation of European Court of Human Rights judgments, to hold your government's feet to the fire, to allocate money, to change laws, to push your governments to do more to implement human rights judgments in a full and timely manner.
Nils Muiznieks, the Human Rights Commissioner there. That's it for this edition of The Session. Until next time, goodbye.